From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm Jaime Hixson, joined by my dear friend on the line.
The name of the game is the hottest, baddest, sexiest man on cable access TV. You're truly Hector Bosa. And let me say, are the Miracle Mets a miracle? Is Judge calling the miracle shot to get a home run? Will a girl play in the Football League? Will John Moxley's arm be ready in October? Will Tony Schiavone be the voice of, AEW? Who knows? And Andrew Luck, is it luck that he retired? Nobody knows. So what have you got to say in all this trial and tribulations of sports that have happened?
Well, I want to address the last thing that you said, and it has been buzzworthy ever since it took place over the weekend, and that's the fact that Andrew Luck decided to retire from the NFL after playing just 7 seasons. First off, he raised a lot of eyebrows around the NFL and even in other sports as well when he decided to call it quits. That's number one. Number two, can you believe the poor guy was actually booed by Colts fans when he was walking off the field and going into the locker room?
Yes, I could understand why, because instead of doing it during the beginning of the season of last year or the end of the season of last year, that way the Colts could have gotten another quarterback perhaps in the draft. He waited 2 games into the season, the preseason, and then go, you know what, I can't take it. I'm retired. I'm burnt out. So, some people can understand the burnout, and some people can't understand the burnout, especially these people that have fantasy football.
I think it's more than just burnout. I think the guy was just plagued by a whole bunch of injuries.
He was saying he was burnt out. According to some of the articles that I've read, he was just burnt out. He couldn't take it no more.
He couldn't take the injuries anymore. And to be quite honest with you, I really don't know if these fans get what that young man has gone through. I mean, think about it. Lacerated kidney, a bum knee, a concussion, a busted shoulder that needed a surgery that took him out for a whole season, and now this combination calf and ankle injury that he was diagnosed with that caused a lot of mystery and discussion. Bottom line, the kid was just so plagued by all of these injuries. I mean, this is 5 or 6 injuries that he suffered in a 7-year NFL career. Naturally, he's not going to want to have to put up with the pain anymore. Now, there are still guys who think that maybe he'll need about 4 games or maybe a whole season before he decides whether he still has the desire in him to play again. But there was another former NFL player who tweeted just recently about how he suffered multiple concussions in 7 years of playing in the league. This is not touch football or flag football that we're talking about here. This is a game in which there have been guys who urinated blood in the locker room during halftime of games in years past. This is not something to trifle with. If you get hammered and your brain feels like it's rattling around inside your head, maybe it's time for you to think about what's left of your good health and probably call it a career.
Right, but nobody's saying that. The point, I guess, the people that are mad at is the fact that if he felt that way, he should have alerted the team ahead of time, because maybe they could have drafted a quarterback and go, you know what, guys, I don't know if I'm going to make it this year. You better draft another quarterback, or let them know ahead of time instead of going 2 games into the season right now, the preseason, and going, you know what, I can't. That's
well, you know what?
Understand.
That reeks of a little hypocrisy in my mind, because these are the same guys that wind up practically surprising a lot of these players by giving them no walking papers just moments after signing a lucrative contract. These things happen. The Patriots did that to an offensive lineman who they gave a 2-year deal to just a few months ago, and all of a sudden he wound up getting released. So I don't buy this at all.
That being released and retiring is 2 different things. The one that was being released, it was the team that didn't want him. Now, retiring is a whole different ballgame.
They're in the same boat, though, because that means somebody has to leave, whether they retire or whether they get kicked out.
No, but here's the thing. If they get kicked out, it was because the team or the manager, the GM wanted him out, even though he got paid. Retiring is a different story. I'm going in, I'm saying to myself, okay, fine. I think I'm going to retire. Let the team know ahead of time. I guess that's why people are annoyed at the fact that they didn't. According to fans now, this is from the fans' perspective, which is, and the team perspective maybe should have been, hey, listen, guys, I don't know if I'm going to do it this year. Get another quarterback. Have a backup plan or something, because I don't know if I'm going to make it this year.
Well,
and
you know what?
That's what people are more annoyed at anything. Not that the man's health. I'm sure a lot of people are sympathetic because a lot of people get burnt out and so on. But just the fact that he didn't do it at the end of the season or at the beginning of the season before the draft, I think that's what people are mad at the most.
That's their problem. And as far as when to make a decision, that's his choice. He made his choice. People got to deal with it.
Yeah, right. But that's why some people are booing, because they think it's not fair, because they think they're part of the team.
Oh, that's just being so ungrateful.
They're just fans.
They are so ungrateful and so disrespectful to this guy who did so much for the team in 7 years. You don't do that to the young man. I mean, the guy has a wife and children, for crying out loud. Again, leave him alone, please.
When it comes to fans and perhaps some of his football teammates, they're not going to understand family members and so on. They're just wanting to know about, why did you do it at this time? It's like Jeff Van Gundy. After, what was it, a week or 2 into the season, he decided
19 games into the year, he turned in his resignation.
Exactly. Now, for whatever reason that happened, maybe it could have been James Dolan or whatever, that could have been it. Or he said he burnt out too. But my point is, if he would have told the fans before that it would have been his last year, I think people would have took it better. But going into the preseason 2 games and going, that's it, I'm done, people will get mad at that. It's a 50-50. You're either sympathetic with the man or you're going to get angry with the man, but it's his choice nonetheless.
I choose to respect the man's choice, regardless of when he was going to make it.
Look at what they're doing to Eli Manning. Eli Manning has played in 2 Super Bowls and all that other stuff, and just because the second quarterback that they have is doing perhaps better, instead of going, you know what, he's been in our team for a very long time. He gave us two Super Bowls. He's got a better front line. Maybe he could do better, but they're not giving him the chance. They're just getting the odds on when is the second quarterback going to start. When they lose 4 straight games, when they become 2 and 3, and they're already betting on when this guy's going to come in. Instead of going, wait until the season starts and let him play the full season, let the guy sit out. Or at the end of the game, let him play the two. And then, God forbid, if he wins the 2 or 3 games, the second quarterback, which I forgot his name, if he wins 2 or 3 games, they would be shouting, why didn't you play him in the beginning? So
everybody wants to pick a fight for no reason whatsoever.
Exactly. So when it comes to Andrew Luck, again, I think people would have just been more settled at the fact that if he would have said, you know what, I'm retiring, that's it, I'm not going on anymore, I think people would have still been mad, but they wouldn't have been as mad as going to here's 2 preseasons, I'm quitting. I don't have it.
I wonder if the fans were mad when Calvin Johnson decided to retire after 9 years, or if Barry Sanders decided to retire after 10 years. Did anybody give them the benefit of the doubt, or did they give them the same grief that the Colts fans were giving Andrew Luck?
Well, how did Barry Sanders, did he quit in the middle of the season? Did he quit in the middle of the beginning of the season?
He quit before the start of training camp.
Yeah, and he got held for that
But the problem was no one saw this coming. And as it turns out, the reason why Barry Sanders retired is because he did not think the Lions had any chance of doing anything the following season. Calvin Johnson was the same way.
Didn't he try to come back, Barry Sanders?
He may have, but there was a matter of his money, because they still wanted him to pay back a lot of the money that he earned in his signing bonus when he signed that new 5-year deal.
But again, he didn't. Again, there's a situation where it's a 50-50, where he signed it. He got a bonus, but he didn't want to play. You know what? He's got to give back the money. Why? Because he didn't play. Now, people are going to get mad because here you are again signing a contract. You're not saying you're going to retire. You're not saying you're going to retire. So, yeah, people are going to want you to play because you did sign a contract. But, it's different where I'm saying, at the end of the season, if he felt like this, the way Andrew Luck felt, that's different because he was going through all sorts of health issues.
Again,
it's a 50-50.
These people need to put themselves in Luck's situation. He's gone through one different injury after another in 7 years. He missed one whole season because he underwent a major surgery on his shoulder. And he was still going through the aches and pains of his past injuries. Does anybody think that these decisions are easy? I mean, could he have decided maybe around springtime that it was over for him? Maybe. But at the same time, this is a lot to try and decide. Does he go through an entire 16-game season and risk getting another major injury again? Or does he take his time, see how he feels, and if he's not feeling well, whenever it is, whether it's halfway through preseason or whether it's through the draft or the May mini camps or even the start of training camp, then he can decide that it's time for him to go. I just wish these guys were a little bit more sympathetic to the kid.
Well,
quite frankly, I'm a little infuriated right now because this smacks of ungratefulness among the fans and a little hypocrisy by a lot of these critics.
Well, here's the other thing too. You got to remember, now that he's left, all they're worried about is how they're going to make it to the Super Bowl, like you say with the Knicks.
I think you can forget the Super Bowl now, man. There's no chance of that happening right now. Not with Jacoby Brissett.
Exactly. This is my whole point. this is what the fans are thinking of. They're not thinking so much about luck. They're thinking about how their football team is going to make it to the playoffs, and why did he do this to us now? Now, I agree with your point to some degree, but you got to look at it from their point of view too, just like you're telling the fans, look at it from his point of view. Now, there's a fantastic quarterback out there that they can get.
Colin Kaepernick.
Exactly. But you know what? They're not going to do it.
They're not going to do it for no reason whatsoever. This guy has done nothing to be ostracized the way he has, or blackballed the way he has by the NFL, and he still can't get a job.
Except for our president saying that he should never go in, and then finally he says he should be in if he's a good quarterback. Donald Trump does not know football because he's been a damn good quarterback. They should give him a shot. Let him do what he wants. If he wants to deal, fine. If you don't want to, like in the old days, keep the national anthem. Let the players come out after the national anthem, and that way there's no controversy.
That situation would have been really, really good for him.
But then they'll say, "Oh, but it's not patriotic because we want." There are some people for it, and there are some people against it. That's my whole point. There will always be people that will the naysayers. Just like when it comes to Andrew Luck, there is with Eli Manning, with the Knicks, with the Nets, every team that they're very passionate about. It's going to be the same way. Mickey Callaway, should you keep him or not, even though he has this great run going? Some people are saying keep him, some people are saying no. It's the whole damn decision that it's very tiresome, and it's just about the fans because the fans is what makes the team, but they're not the ones. They're paying for it in their ticket prices.
Mm-hmm.
But it's their job.
Yeah. Since we mentioned Andrew Luck, we'd be remiss if we did not mention what else is going on in the NFL, specifically what's going on with our Jets and Giants right now. The Giants came away with a rather impressive win against the Bears first and then the Bengals. And now all that's left is the finale with the Patriots before they start the real season. The Jets have been a little up and down, losing to the Giants, beating the Falcons, but then losing to the Saints at home. And now they have their finale with the Eagles before they start the real season.
But how was the score? If the score was tight, then that's a win-win for the Jets. Because that means
the Jet game was 28-13.
It all depends how you look at what a win is in preseason. Are the players that you have ready, are the people that you thought that you picked up that weren't any good actually became better than what you thought?
Oh.
I mean, that's what preseason is.
Part of what's been going on with the Jets is the fact that Le'Veon Bell has not taken one single handoff from quarterback this preseason. They've been keeping him on the bench, probably because they want to keep him fresh for the real season.
But he's got to learn how to take a hit.
He's going to have to learn how to take a hit. He's had a whole year off.
And also, not for nothing, but he can get hurt at any time. I mean, he can step on the field the first game and then just blow his knee or whatever. I mean, I hope that doesn't happen, but I'm just saying in general. So,
God forbid it happens to that young man, as if the Jet fans have not had any more heartache than they've already had in the last, 6 years now?
So
6 or 7 years.
You got Sam Donaldson.
You mean Sam Darnold?
Yeah, Sam Darnold.
Sam Donaldson is the newscaster.
That's true. I forgot he died. But Sam Darnold is supposed to be in his sophomore year, and in the news articles, he's matured, he's gotten better. What do you think?
Well, he's had his lumps in the preseason here and there. Overall, it's been okay. It's definitely not been great. I would like to see how he does working with those two receivers that he has, Jermaine Kearse and also Robbie Anderson. Let me correct myself. Jermaine Kearse actually got released by the Jets. There's the other guy that they picked up, the one that they got from the Browns, and now he's going to be working with Bell, giving him the majority of the carries. I just wish that the Jets had themselves a really top-of-the-line tight end who could not only block for him, but also show that he can catch the ball. And I don't see one single guy on the Jets or one single tight end on that roster that I can call someone that he could probably get the ball to in a big spot. That's why I'm a little worried about the receiving core that the Jets have. Sorry, but Robbie Anderson as their number one guy, I'm never going to buy it. Le'Veon Bell, I'm worried about what he's going to do after a whole year off. And
but here's the other thing you got to think of.
And there's also that offensive line.
You got to think of this. Other teams are going to let players go. So you better hope and pray that the Jets can find someone out there that can fill the spot. Every team has to go through that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, every team has to go through that. You know, so you got the Jets somewhat on an upside, according to what the newspapers and the radio shows have said, that they're more on an upside, that he's the quarterback's improved, everybody's improved. Now we just got to start the season and see what happens.
Yeah.
Now I just want if the Jets become a flop and this quarterback doesn't do anything, do you start going, we have to get another quarterback, or do you give him another shot?
No, you have to give the kid another shot. Don't do what the Arizona Cardinals did, and that's give up on your number one draft pick after one season. Sam Darnold, quite frankly, deserves a longer leash than that. Because, let me tell you, Sam Darnold is better than Josh Rosen. That is for sure. And Rosen wound up getting traded to the Dolphins because supposedly he's going to be their guy for the future. Of course, they also brought in Ryan Fitztragic to be their backup, and it's looking more and more like right now the Dolphins are going to make Fitztragic the frontline quarterback for the entire season. And this on a roster that has absolutely zero talent at any of their skill positions, whether it's offensive line or running back or receiver or tight end or anywhere on the defensive line. That is a team that I can tell you right now is going to flirt with the title of worst team in the league. As far as the Jets are concerned,
yes.
Sam Darnold needs a much longer leash than this. He needs better receivers to work with. Sorry, but I am no fan of Robbie Anderson. I think he's probably no more than a third or fourth receiver on somebody else's roster. At this rate, it looks like the Jets might have to pound the ball to Le'Veon Bell as much as possible to try and take the pressure off the kid.
I did send you another article about everybody's waiting for next year in the quarterback selection.
Mm-hmm.
How great the quarterback selection is going to be next year. So,
well, let me tell you, the one guy that I'm looking at right now is Tua Tagovailoa, who's from Alabama, a kid who has already won a national championship with the University of Alabama. In fact, I would go so far as to look at Andrew Lawrence from Clemson, a kid who looks like he's got a whole bunch of tools to probably make himself a future number one pick. And then there's the guys that who are going to be out to prove themselves. There's Justin Herbert from Oregon, Jake Fromm from Georgia, and then there's the former Alabama kid, Jalen Hurts, who transferred to Oklahoma for graduate school. And then there's Mason Fine, a much lesser-known product who plays at North Texas. So Could it be that this quarterback class for 2020 is going to be good, if not great? Possibly. But at the same time, we have to see what these kids do in a full season for us to judge. But right now, the guy to look at is Tua Tagovailoa from Alabama.
And as for the Giants, they're in a position where they have two quarterbacks,
both of whom are playing very well so far.
But they still want the young dude to play.
And he's getting every single chance in the preseason. And he has done very, very well for himself. You got to give him some credit.
No.
You know what? Even their backup quarterback, Kyle Lauletta, who they drafted last year from Richmond, he's had his moments where he's looked reasonably well.
I mean, you got to give him credit, but here's the thing. Who would you start, Eli Manning or the backup?
If I were going by who was playing the best football in preseason, by all means, it's got to be Daniel Jones. There have been times when he's looked dynamite. Has he made his mistakes here and there? Yeah, he's made a couple of mistakes. He's got a little problem protecting the football.
Right.
Twice in the Chicago game, he wound up getting strip sacked. So that's something that with coaching, he's really going to have to try and improve.
But what you have here, the problem that you have is you have Eli Manning and you have the backup quarterback, which you just said his name and I forgot about it. Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones. Okay, you got Daniel Jones. He's playing great in preseason, right? Mm-hmm. And Eli Manning's not doing bad in preseason either.
He's played very well.
So here's the thing. At what point, or what's the Giants' record has to be before Daniel Jones has to come in? Before you see him come in, that's the big question. Where do you see him come in the season if Eli Manning doesn't produce?
My final answer? You want my final answer?
Yeah. What's the record has to be before he comes in?
If the Giants are when the Giants are halfway through the season, and they're dreadful, I'm talking 0-8 dreadful, then you got to put Daniel Jones into the game.
4-6.
If they're 4-6 after 10 games, and Eli is the starter, you mean?
Yep.
Give him a longer leash. If he can get that one last shot at putting together a really good winning streak to end the season, and he sneaks the Giants into the playoffs, then I would continue to use him as the starter for as long as he can carry them.
Because a lot of people want Daniel Jones so badly that they want Eli Manning on a short leash. And these are fans, and I think the coach wants to start Daniel Jones. Again, the GM wants to start Eli Manning, but the coach wants to start Daniel Jones because
the owner wants to start Daniel Jones. Actually, the owner wants to start Eli Manning.
That's what I
John
said.
Mara says that he wants a scenario where Eli starts every game and Jones is on the bench for the entire season.
That's what I just said.
Well, you called him the general manager. John Mara is the boss.
The owner wants to start Eli Manning, but the coach wants to start Daniel Jones. Because if you hear his press conferences and his tidbits when you hear sports radio talk, you'll hear him say, I picked a great guy. Just people don't know it. And he gives praises to him, Daniel Jones, but you barely hear him say anything about Eli Manning.
Here's a follow-up to this.
That's the point. I think he wants to start Daniel Jones so bad. And do you think he wants Eli Manning to be bad so he can prove his point that Daniel Jones is the better man.
Here's a follow-up to this, though. Would you see a scenario where the coach decides to use both guys in a game?
No. I
didn't think
can't
so.
do that. You have to have one or the other, because if you start playing, okay, you play one game and then you play another, then the team is not going to get used to one quarterback. It's rotation. It's just the same thing over and over again. You got to give the team at least 8 games, 7 games in order for them to gel as one team. You know, people want to give this guy 3 games. If he loses 3 games straight, that's it. Bring in Daniel Jones. I know, you can't. This is the man, just like Andrew Luck. He's won you 2 Super Bowls, and Eli Manning, his contract is due over 2022 or 2021. I'm not sure when his contract's over with.
When his contract is over with?
Yeah,
I think
Eli
it ends.
Manning.
I think it ends next year.
So you know what? Let him play one more year, and you know what? If you're gonna get rid of him now. Like some of the talk show hosts used to say, get rid of him now and get draft choices for him.
And let me correct myself. This is actually his walk year. Eli Manning is in the walk year of his contract, so he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. So
like
that means, well, he's going to make, what, $22.5, $23 million a year?
Right.
You know, there's been so much being said by the media that the Giants should just part ways with Eli at the end of the year. But
yeah, I'm sure they will.
Eli is Eli's a lot.
Let's say he wins you a Super Bowl or gets you into the playoffs.
If he wins a
Does that
Super
mean-
Bowl, that's from your mouth to God's ears, first of all. If he does, by any chance, pull off this miracle, I think Eli would decide for himself, this would be the perfect way to end a career, and he would actually retire.
Now, you see, I would, but if he thinks he's got some gas in his tank, or even if he makes the playoffs, let's say he makes the
Obviously,
first round
he's
of the
going to think
playoffs.
that he could still play, of course.
If he makes the first round of the playoffs, do you sign him for one more year, or do you bring in the other dude?
If they go far into the playoffs, but they have like a first or second round exit, wow, that's a really good question.
Exactly.
But if to give you an answer, my answer would be no. I think the Giants move on from Eli and bring in Daniel Jones as the starter. They have to move on and go with Daniel as the starter.
And I think, like I said, I think the coach wants to have him so bad so that he can prove the fans that they were wrong about him.
I hope it's not to try and prove anything, and it's more along the lines of him having respect for such a seasoned veteran that he wants to see exactly what the guy has left. And for the record, Eli's made it loud and clear. He's not thinking about retiring. He still thinks he could play. Now, whether he can prove that on the field, he's going to have to show it.
You know what? Like you said before, it all depends how the ball bounces. Because right now, if he has a great front line or a decent front line, he holds the ball very well. He can throw. He does a lot of things well that you don't notice. Mm-hmm. But like you said, if he's got a front line and you hold it for him, he could actually do some damage.
Yeah.
But that's going to be the big talk of the year. When do you bring him in? When do you not? Do you trade him and try to get picks for him? Because that's what some people are saying. If you don't want him, get picks for him now and be done with it, and let the other guy play, and then you start fresh from scratch. But since you kept him, then you keep him and you play him until like you said, the record is so bad that he gets his reps in and be done with it. And then people are going to say, well, why didn't you bring him in sooner? you know what? It's his walk year. Let him do what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let Eli, even if they're 2-8, that's when you bring him in. Other than that, and then let's say he the second guy, wins games. There's gonna be people. Why didn't you bring him in sooner? You know what? Because you got a quarterback that has won you 2 Super Bowl, and he deserves that much.
So true.
And look at the records he's broken.
Mm-hmm.
Look at all the records he's broken and everything. Look
He's
what
already
done
the
for you.
Giants' all-time leading passer, and he's in the top 10 in NFL history in passing yardage. I mean, this is no slouch we're talking about here. The guy's won 2 Super Bowls and has thrown for over 50,000 yards for his career. And should we mention the number of come-from-behind victories that he's engineered, especially in the Super Bowl? That's got to count for something.
But look, but all you hear about is, look at his age. Oh, he's old. He can't move as he used to. Look at it. The first thing they'll talk about is his age.
Eli could never move well, even in his young age. He was like he looked like a wobbly drunk person out there with the ball.
But he's always had a good throwing arm, and he's been very
That's what's
accurate.
gotten him through for 15 years. He's
And
a
also
strong
he's
throwing arm.
And also, he hasn't had so many injuries in his career. He hasn't had a severe injury.
That's why he started more than 200 games in a row for his career. Because he has been able to keep himself, for all intents and purposes, close to 100% healthy.
But again, like if you've heard sports talk radio, and even on TV, his age. Oh Jesus, I'm still talking about, Tom Brady. Look at his age. They're not talking about
Tom Brady
him
just
time.
turned 42 years old a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, but
and
remember,
he still got it.
He still got it because he's got always a good front line, and everything goes good for him.
And a really good running game, too.
Exactly. So, that's like comparing apples to oranges.
And the only major injury he ever had was when he blew out his knee.
Exactly. So there. But when it comes now, shifting a little bit, almost same situation with the Mets. Mickey Callaway.
He's on the firing line. In my eyes, he's on the firing line. Because
even if he wins, you get rid of him?
If he wins, he'll save himself. But if the Mets miss the playoffs, he has to be given his walking papers. His managing style stinks. He's misused the bullpen. He's mismanaged the starting rotation. He has not given enough length for his starting pitchers. Look at what happened just, what was it? 3 nights ago when Jacob deGrom started and went 7 innings. He could have been given a much longer leash or at least a chance at a complete game. And what happens? The bullpen takes over, and next thing we know, Jody Familia winds up giving the go-ahead run in extra innings, and he gets booed off the field. And look what happened in yesterday's game. Steven Matz was pitching beautifully, and what happens? The bullpen gets shredded. And speaking of which, will there ever come a time when the Mets will stop bowing down to the Atlanta Braves? The Mets cannot beat the Braves to save their lives. Every single series, the Braves are coming up with one big hit at the plate or one big strikeout on the mound. And while they're at it, the Braves have also shown a little bit more power, a little bit more athleticism on the field than the Mets have. It just infuriates me that a team like that could be dominated so badly in their own division by an by another squad for more than 20 years.
Well, look at the Yankees versus Baltimore. The Yankees always dominate Baltimore.
That's because Baltimore has zero talent on their roster. Quite frankly, the Yankees should dominate the Orioles because the Orioles do not have any stars whatsoever for position players. At least the Mets have a couple of players here and there, and they have the starting pitching to try and, you would think, match up with the Braves.
So you say that the Atlanta Braves and the Mets match up?
Starting pitching-wise, I think the Mets are right there with the Atlanta Braves. Batting order-wise, what's that?
Position-wise.
Position-wise, the Mets are not in the Braves' stratosphere, except for maybe 2 or 3 guys.
Hitting-wise?
Hitting-wise, let's see. Freddie Freeman, Ronald Acuna Jr., Josh Donaldson, who's a former MVP. Let's see who else that they have. When he comes back from his injury, Ender Inciarte. And who do the Mets have for their troubles? Aside from Peter Alonso and Jeff McNeil and J.D. Davis. The silence right now should be telling you a lot.
Okay, and here's the other one. Better bullpen. So Atlanta Braves got better hitting, better fielding. They match up pitching and bullpen-wise.
Bullpen-wise, the Braves have the more superior bullpen than the Mets.
Okay. So now that being said, Atlanta should be able to beat on a team that's bad. But here's what I think you're
Ergo, the Miami Marlins.
As bad as they are, how are they only 2 back if they were 14 back?
Because everybody else is, quite frankly, a hodgepodge of a roster. And I'll tell you right now, after the Dodgers and I would say the Cardinals and then the Braves, those wild card spots, and possibly the wild card spots that the Cubs and the Nationals occupy right now, everybody else is either mediocre or nowhere near belonging in this race.
But the Mets are only 2 back, and they were 14 back, so what did they do? As bad as they are...
We know what they did? First off, what they did was they took advantage of the soft part of their schedule. That's number 1. Number 2, they took advantage of the interleague part of their schedule, which was the American League Central. They wound up sweeping Cleveland, which was pretty impressive, and they also wound up doing away with the Chicago White Sox, a team that, quite frankly, is maybe 3 or 4 years away from being a real contender. But you look at the other teams that the Mets are going to be facing coming up. I mean, that Braves series, quite frankly, I thought the Mets should have taken 2 out of 3 in that series, but the Mets could never get the big hit that they were supposed to in the late innings. Peter Alonso's 3-run home run was okay, but where was that in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings? And look who the Mets have coming up. The Chicago Cubs at home. The Phillies to start a road trip. The Nationals in that same road trip. And then they have to play the Phillies again. The Phillies have owned the Mets this season. Then there's the Arizona Diamondbacks. Then there's the Dodgers, the best team in baseball right now. If you want to go that far, although the Yankees will probably dispute that after what happened over the weekend. The Dodgers, the Colorado Rockies, the Cincinnati Reds. Then they finished the season at home against the Marlins, who they should beat. And then the thorn on their side, that is the Braves. Quite frankly, I don't know how the Mets are going to be able to get through this tough part of the schedule without a single loss. Oh,
here's what you have to hope for. That if they lose the other teams that are in front of them lose too, and hopefully they can catch up that way.
It's a lot to ask for of a bunch of teams to just suddenly
But that's normal, though.
self-destruct.
That's normal in baseball. How many times have you heard, well, this team has to lose and this other team has to win in order for the other team has to go into the playoffs? Plenty of times that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, if there are only two out, you got to wait until what happens at the end of this road trip.
Yeah, here's another thing.
Great.
The two teams that are the wild cards now, the Nationals and the Cubs. The Cubs have won 12 out of 17 from the Mets in the last 2.5 years. The Phillies have won 9 of 13 from the Mets this year. The Brewers. The Mets have major problems with the Brewers because they can't seem to deal with Christian Yelich at all, or any of their power hitters in their batting order. I'm telling you, it's too high of a hill for them to climb, and quite frankly, I just don't see them being ready to be a playoff team yet.
Imagine if the Yankees and Mets were to switch leagues for about 3 years. I wonder, the Yankees playing the Atlanta Braves in that division and the Mets playing in that division. Where would you think the Mets would be in the American League, and where would you think the Yankees would be in the National League?
Honestly, I think a Yankees versus Braves series would be top of the line, first of all, because you've got two teams with really solid pitching and terrific batting orders going at it in a single series. How would the Yankees do in the National League? You put them in the National League East, I think they'll wipe the floor with the Marlins, and I also think they'll be able to hold their own with the Phillies and the Nationals. The Braves, if the Yankees figure out a way to pitch to Freddie Freeman or to Ronald Acuna Jr., maybe they'll be able to overcome the Braves. Now, if they were to play the teams in the National League Central, for example, the Brewers or the Cubs or the Cardinals, well, first off, I think the Yankees will hammer the Pirates. I think they'll equally hammer the Reds. The Brewers are going to give them some problems. I know that for sure, because the Brewers got very, very underrated pitching. The Cubs, they're about as close to complete of a team as they are right now. I'm a little bit concerned about their starting pitching, though. St. Louis is very complete right now. They have all sorts of stars in the batting order and in their starting rotation that could give the Yankees a lot of trouble. The Yankees have proven themselves against the Dodgers. As far as the other teams are concerned, they've had problems with Colorado in the past because if you go to Coors Field to play against the Rockies, you're guaranteed to give up about 5 or 10 runs a game. San Diego, I just don't think the Padres have enough pitching to try and get through. In fact, their multi-million-dollar man, Mr. Manny Machado, has had a rather ordinary season. He's only hit about 26, 27 home runs this season. Arizona gave the Yankees a lot of problems this year because the Diamondbacks were much better pitching-wise than people gave them credit for. And the Giants, Madison Bumgarner. That's all you need to know about the Giants is Madison Bumgarner. That's in their pitching staff. In their batting order, I worry a lot about Buster Posey. I worry a lot about Brandon Crawford, who's a hell of a shortstop, a very good contact hitting shortstop. I think the Giants can give the Yankees a lot of trouble. So if you were to ask me, I think the Yankees would be maybe an 85 to 90 win team in the National League.
Would they be in the wild card, or would they be in first place?
I think they would be a wild card.
For the wild card.
I think they would be. They could probably get away with being the second wild card.
And let me ask you, with the Mets,
you put the Mets in the American League, The Red Sox will give them problems. The Mets will own the Baltimore Orioles. Shame on them if they don't. I think the Mets would own the Blue Jays too, although the Blue Jays, don't be fooled by their record. They got a couple of guys in their batting order, all of whom are the sons of former major leaguers that are the real future for them. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Craig Biggio's kid as well. The Red Sox will give them problems. That's for sure. Tampa, I think, can give them trouble because of their pitching as well. As far as the American League Central, they've already wiped out the White Sox, came close to wiping out the Kansas City Royals, and I think they would squash the Tigers, to be honest with you. The Indians, the Mets already proved themselves against the Indians. They were able to pitch better than the Indians. As far as the Twins are concerned, I think the Mets can hang with the Twins because the Mets were able to have just enough pitching to neutralize that Twins batting order. Out west, the Mets would have no shot against the Astros. The Astros are just deadly with their starting staff. I mean, look at who their trio is in the starting staff. Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole. Now they have Aaron Sanchez. This is an extremely dangerous trio that the Mets would have to deal with. And there's also the matter of their batting order. The Astros have way too many weapons in their batting order for the Mets to hang with. Oakland, I think, would give them a lot of trouble. The Angels, I can tell you right now, Mike Trout would take them deep in at least 2 or 3 games in a series. Seattle, I don't see Seattle giving them a lot of trouble. Texas is going to be a little bit of a problem because the ball really carries in their ballpark, and the Mets have been a little vulnerable to the home run this season. So the Rangers, I think the Rangers can give the Mets a little bit of trouble if a series were played at Global Life Field. Which reminds me, the Rangers are going to be getting themselves a brand new stadium in the Dallas suburbs. I think it's going to be somewhere around 2021 or 22 or 23. I'm not really sure. But I do know that the Texas Rangers are going to get a brand new stadium to replace Global Life Field down the road.
So you would say that the Mets would do better in the American League East than the Yankees would do in the National League East?
Just a tad better. I think the Mets could probably win 85, 86 games.
Okay. Now, what do you think of the Yankees bullpen now? And where did they put Dylan Betances? You got Paxton, Happ, and CC Sabathia. What do you do with all them guys, and how do you rotate them? And, Dylan Betances is like having a new pitcher. They're bringing up this young guy.
He would be a plus just by himself. As far as what to do with that starting rotation, well,
to the playoffs.
For the playoffs, as far as what to do with that starting rotation, my guess is they're going to make Domingo Germán the Game 1 starter for a potential division series. And then probably have CC Sabathia be the number 2 starter because they want that veteran savvy on the mound. Although, if you ask me, CC Sabathia is washed up. I mean, I know he's come back from knee injuries on and off, but he looks so washed up on the mound right now that it's really sad. It's a good thing that he decided that this season was going to be his last season, because if not, I think you might have to tear the jersey off of him in order to get him off the mound.
Isn't Tanaka? He didn't want to come back. They actually wanted him to come back, and he didn't want to come back. Tanaka.
Yeah.
So, and he's one of your most reliable pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have to remember, what are you going to do for next year? But that's next year. There's going to be hopefully a lot of pitchers at the end.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think Tanaka's in his walk year because he signed a 6-year contract originally with a out clause after 4 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And for the record, the Texas Rangers will be playing in their new stadium, Globe Life Field, next year.
So what do you think about the Babe Ruth call?
The Babe Ruth call?
Yeah, the home run that he said to a fan, and Judge did the same thing.
Oh, well, that's totally different because Aaron did that before the game, and he was talking to a young fan. Babe Ruth called his home run shot in Chicago, and there's been a lot of differing opinions about what really happened that day. Did he point to the Cubs dugout as a way of maybe talking a little trash towards them? Or did he really say that he was going to hit a home run to straightaway right field or right center field?
He promised the kid in the hospital that he would do it. That's the story. That's the myth, the legend that has become Babe Ruth.
I know what you're talking about right now. That was shown in the movie of the same name called The Babe, which had John Goodman.
Right. But I'll tell you something.
As far as what does I think of it, hey, Aaron will do anything to try and please his fans or to interact with his fans. So I have no problem with it whatsoever. It was a really sweet gesture on his part, and as it turns out, he wound up getting himself a home run, which turned out to be major insurance for the Yankees in their victory over the Dodgers yesterday, a victory that gave him the rubber game.
And that must have been, that was some series, though.
The series itself was very good for the last 2 games. Game 2, I think the Yankees kind of let that get away because they had bases loaded with 1 out, and then Kenley Jansen struck out the last 2 batters to face him. But hey, these things happen, so at least the Yankees were able to get 2 out of 3 in the series. Now the Yankees have to come home. Actually, their road trip continues, and they have a pretty long road trip. Let's see. They've already got swept by Oakland, took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. Tonight they have the Seattle Mariners. And even though the Mariners are looking ahead to the end of the season, don't count these guys out because they still have a couple of young players who could give them trouble.
How many do the Yankees have to clinch?
How many victories do the Yankees have to clinch, or how many do they have to get to clinch?
To get the clinch.
Let's see. Well, the magic number to win the Eastern Division is 22 games. The magic number to clinch a playoff spot in general?
That should be...
Yeah.
If it's 22 games...
I think it's about 20 to 25 games, if I'm not mistaken.
To have home field advantage, because they're trying to win home field advantage and trying to beat everybody.
Yeah.
So who's got a better record than the Yankees?
Who's got a better record than the Yankees right now?
Yeah.
It was the Dodgers. Actually, it still is the Dodgers. 86-46, and the Yankees are actually tied with the Houston Astros for the best record in the American League, 85-47.
Okay, well, it's 7:59.
Yep.
It was great chatting. Hopefully we'll talk about hockey next time and more wrestling and everything else. But until that time, Jamie, I will let you go.
Thanks so much. And thanks to Kenny Graham on the other side of the glass. For everyone here, I'm Jamie.
I'm Hector.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.